Nightcast. Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth brings you the current news from the world today and how it relates to Bible prophecy. Understanding the end-time events leading to the peaceful world tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth.
Good evening, friends. Welcome to this January 1st, 2015, as the Roman calendar calls it. And our opening story tonight, China's President Xi Jinping has demanded an investigation into Shanghai's New Year's Eve crush that killed 36 people and injured 47. The crush happened in Chenyi Square in the Bund district, where huge crowds had gathered for the New Year's Eve countdown last night. Here's the opening video on that.
On the morning after, as floral tributes were brought to the scene, Shanghai's New Year disaster has left a country in shock and facing difficult questions. State media is calling it a wake-up call. Taken just 20 minutes or so before midnight, these photos show the police struggling against the sheer weight of the crowd, unable to rescue or treat those caught in the deadly crush. The authorities appear to have been caught off guard, despite the fact that this year's celebrations, because of public safety concerns, had already been scaled back to keep crowds to a minimum. At hospitals across the city, relatives of the dead and injured faced a distressing wait for news.
Now I just want to know what's going on inside the hospital. Many relatives had asked to go inside and asked the hospital to give us a list of the injured, including the conscious and unconscious ones, but nobody got back to us.
With people out enjoying the first day of the new year, there is little sign of last night's chaos today. The historic waterfront area in one of China's showcase cities has been cleared away with brisk efficiency. But that it happened here at all will cause deep concern, and the Chinese president himself, Xi Jinping, has called for a speedy inquiry and for lessons to be learned. One possible explanation for the stampede is that it was triggered by someone throwing fake money from a nightclub window. But whatever the cause, it has turned Shanghai's night of New Year celebration into a deep personal tragedy for so many. John Sudworth, BBC News, Shanghai.
Friends, later reports on that story say that the fake money that was mentioned as having been a possible cause for the crush being thrown out a window, it was learned that the fake money was thrown out after the crush occurred. And what they mean by crush is on a stairway there was a big crowd of people, some coming down, some coming up, and then some people changing their mind at the last moment, trying to decide whether they go back up or go on down. And that was part of it. And it was a stampede, a crush by a stampede of too many people. And we'll hear more on that because the president of China is wanting a further investigation on it. Another item in news tonight. Let me tell you where we're going at the end of the program tonight, though. We're going to cover some information related to, let me put a chart that we often use as we rebuild our shots on a new system while we're waiting on our old system to be improved and revamped with some new equipment that we will be ordering soon as we put in more memory to it and blew out some of the thing that it won't work right now, but we're getting it fixed. And when it is fixed, it'll be better than it was. But this is our old chart you see on the screen here behind me. And over on the right side of this chart, let me pull it forward. You'll see that, well, let's see, this button to pull it forward. Okay, on the very right side of this chart, you see if you count down 4 photographs. I know that's small. I need to set up a camera shot where we can zoom in on it like we used to, but just the 4th one down on the very far right side, I'll do that for you in the next few nights. We'll talk about this again. I just want to briefly mention that that's Charles V of the Habsburg dynasty, that many of you who've been members of a church that I've been a long-time member of and have been studying prophecy will recognize when I mention the Habsburg dynasty, will recognize something of some significance to that. And even more so to that, there's a grandson of that old Holy Roman Empire that is alive and doing very well. I'll talk about him after a couple more stories toward the end of a shorter broadcast tonight. But let's go to this next story, go to a story next out of Egypt that relates to today's news. Lawyers for the 3 journalists who were jailed in Egypt, imprisoned with long sentences, say that the 3 journalists, the men, will apply for bail at the first hearing of an appeal that they've put in. Egypt's top court has ordered a retrial of the 3 al-Jazeera journalists jailed on charges of spreading false news. The decision was made after the hearing in Cairo of an appeal by the 3 against their conviction. Prosecutors acknowledge major problems with the verdict. Defense lawyers said a new trial will occur within a month, but the trio must stay in custody. They were not able to get out on bail. Al Jazeera called on the authorities to release the journalists quickly, but so far that's been denied. The journalists deny the charges, which included collaborating with the banned Muslim Brotherhood after the overthrow of President Mohamed Morsi by the military in 2013. We've got video on this with Ora Gorin.
Jailed for journalism, Mohamed Fahmy, Peter Greste and Bahar Mohamed. These images were taken during their first trial. Human rights groups say they should be released immediately, not tried all over again. The journalists were not in court for today's brief hearing. The verdict was a blow to relatives who hoped they would get bail. Producer Mohamed Fahmy tweeted from hospital where he's had surgery for an old injury. He called the retrial a milestone towards victory. Outside court, his fiancée said they will marry, even in jail, and he will keep struggling for his cause.
He's not only fighting for his freedom, he's fighting for the freedom of press and freedom of expression. It's a very tough battle, but we will keep fighting for this. A retrial means a very lengthy process. It can take up to a year.
Today's ruling here at the court leaves the 3 Al Jazeera journalists behind bars. They've now spent more than a year in a high-security prison complex. Their new trial is expected to begin within a month in a Cairo criminal court. Lawyers say at the first hearing they'll apply for bail.
This four-fingered salute.
This was Peter Greste on the streets of Cairo just before his arrest, reporting on a protest by the Muslim Brotherhood. It's now banned and repressed under Egypt's authoritarian leadership.
Over that side as well now.
Peter Greste's parents said he would stay strong.
We know that he will read the positivity and that he won't be downcast. And he's held out so well so far that, we are confident that whatever distance we still have to run, we'll all get there to the finishing line.
Yeah. Cairo views Al Jazeera, owned by Qatar, as a mouthpiece for the Brotherhood. Many believe Greste and his colleagues were targeted because of Doha's support for the Islamists. But there are indications that the case will be resolved sooner or later, not least because images like this have damaged Egypt greatly.
Friends, 2 of the journalists are foreign nationals, and one of them is a former BBC correspondent, is an Australian, and his producer colleague, Mohamed Fahmy, holds Egyptian and Canadian citizenship. And we'll be keeping an eye on this, especially since it relates to what some have recognized as the country of the King of the South, or at least the one who represents the King of the South, because of the connection that Egypt has with that. Our next story, we go to Brother Reuben. France economist Thomas Piketty has rejected the Legionnaire d'honneur. Mr. Piketty said it is, the caption of this photograph here, friends, Mr. Piketty said it is not the government's role to decide who is honorable. And we have video on this, but let me give you a little more in my introduction. French economist Thomas Piketty, the best-selling author of Capital in the 21st century, has turned down France's top award, the Legion d'honneur. I do not think it is the government's role to decide who is honorable. Piketty said it's not the government's role to decide who is honorable. And I agree with him when it comes to the governments of this world. Now, once Jesus Christ returns and ushers in and restores the kingdom of God to this earth, he's the standard bearer, and then it will be a time of the government deciding who is honorable and who's worthy of entering into the family of the kingdom of God. But in this world, the book that made Mr. Piketty famous examines income inequality in society and became a surprise hit, topping the bestseller list in the U.S. Now, it's rare for anyone to turn down the award, says the BBC's Hugh Schofield in Paris. And yet there are a few others who have turned it down. But Mr. Piketty, who was once close to the Socialist Party but has criticized the government of Francois Hollande, said he was unable to accept the award. I have just learned that I was nominated for the Légion d'honneur. I refuse this nomination because I do not think it is the government's role to decide who is honorable, he told the news agency AFP. He added they would do better, the government would do better, to concentrate on reviving economic growth in France and Europe. And then, friends, for our last story tonight, I wanted to save this for last. Well, actually, wait a minute. This will be next to last. I'm going to cover one more that involves the Pope. Or I'm going to mention the Pope with a story we'll be covering more fully later. So, in effect, really, this is kind of our last story. The photograph you see beside me here, let's pull it full screen. It's a cropped photo. This is a photograph of Karl von Habsburg, who is a grandson of Charles V, who was the fourth of the 7 kings that are mentioned in Revelation 17, verse 10. And let me come out of that for a moment. Let me make sure I'm telling you the correct chapter and verse reference in Revelation. I'm pretty sure it's Revelation 17 and verse 10. If you've got your Bible, you want to go there with me. This is a very, very important verse, very significant verse. And it says, it is Revelation 17, verse 10. While I've got this open, I'll just read it straight from the Bible to you. And there are 7 kings. Christ revealed through the writing of the Apostle John, who was on the Isle of Patmos, who had a vision and in which Christ revealed these things of the book of Revelation, the revelation of Jesus Christ. It's just John wrote it down from the vision that he had regarding it. And in verse 10, Revelation 17, and there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he comes, he must continue a short space. Now, we understand this to be, and many understand who the 5 kings were, as we showed you in this chart on the right-hand side. Over on the far right side, toward the top, those 5 pictures going down from the far right column, those are the 5 kings that are fallen, beginning with Justinian and ending with Napoleon. And just before Napoleon, there is a little picture of Charles V. And like I said, later on in the week, or well, this is the last program for this week, but next week or one of the upcoming programs, I'll fix this shot so we can zoom in on it more tightly. But that one over there, 4th down from the top on the far right side, that's Charles V. Now, but those 5 kings are the 5 kings we know that are those that are mentioned here in verse 10 of Revelation 17 as the 5 who are fallen. And it says, and 1 is. Now, this verse was written in the future pluperfect tense. I think that's the right way to describe it. If I'm incorrect about that, I'm sure I'll hear from some of you, and I'll appreciate hearing from some of you. You know, you can straighten me out. I did take quite a number of grammar courses in college, but that's been a few decades ago. But I can say this to you. When this verse was written down by the Apostle John in 90 A.D., as he wrote 1 is, that was a present tense for not 90 A.D., that was a present tense for a time way into the future. And even when he wrote, and there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, that was a future tense. The 5 hadn't even come into existence yet. And that was a very special type of a tense of a verse, because it's written in the past tense, like 5 are fallen, but it's for a future time when the 5 would have fallen, who first of all had to come in existence. And at the time that John wrote, they weren't in existence. Those 5 kings that are fallen weren't even born yet. So this is a real future prophecy, and then it looks back. And so that's kind of a future and past pluperfect tense of a real wild sort. But that's prophecy. And so those 5 came, and then they went. And they came with, beginning with Justinian, and then they went with Napoleon as the Holy Roman Empire was dissolved after the Battle of Waterloo in 1812. Then the 1 is, and that's, to me, that's the most significant and revealing one in a way, because this 1 is, many students of prophecy and of religion understand, even commentaries can tell you who these 5 kings who are fallen are. I mean, that's almost become kind of common knowledge. But to recognize who the 1 is, that was a very special revelation by Jesus Christ in our last days to us by and through his end-time servant and apostle Herbert W. Armstrong, who was about age 43, 44 in 1936 when God opened this up to him to see that when Mussolini invaded Ethiopia and then announced to the world that he had restored the Holy Roman Empire after he had made a concordant with the Pope, with the Vatican, and that's where the holy connection comes in. Now, it's a false holiness, but nonetheless, it's a religious connection. the religious Roman Empire. It's called, holy, although it's false holy. And I know some of you know what I mean when I put it in that way. But that one that is existed between 1936 and ended in 1945 when Mussolini was hung upside down along with his mistress and his comrades from a canopy of an Esso gasoline service station in Italy. And 1936 to 1945, that was it for the one that is the sixth king, the sixth head of the Holy Roman Empire. And so now that one is past tense for us today, and it says, and one is yet to come is still a future tense. One is still yet to come. And going back to the one who was the fourth king, Charles V, who was of the Habsburg dynasty. He's got a grandson who is alive. Let's go back to this photograph here, and that this is Karl von Habsburg, who was born in 1961. That makes him now either 53 or 54 years old. He's still in his prime for being crowned as the seventh and final head of the Holy Roman Empire. And with the way news is going, friends, that could happen very soon. And I want to just close tonight with this reminder. Those who have been fortunate to be able to hear the sermons of Mr. Herbert W. Armstrong, the sermons, the Bible studies. In one of his speakings, he encouraged us to study what the Bible says about the 1,335 days, about the 1,290 days, and about the 1,260 days, and what they mean and their relationship in regard to what will happen. I've covered that before in some detail, and I'm just going to say in the future, probably next week, because of the importance of this, because of a former graduate of Ambassador College in Bricket Wood coming up with some facts that indicate that 1,335 could begin this year and very soon ahead of us. I mean, very soon. And because of that, we're going to study it and look at together what those things mean and how and why this graduate from Bricket Wood Ambassador College campus is saying it could happen this year, and it could happen even this month, he's saying. So listen, those of you who just watch for news, if you really want to learn something, and those of you who are in the church I've been in, I encourage you to be sure and don't just watch this for news, even though Jesus Christ instructed us in Luke 21, verse 36, to watch and pray always, meaning, that has a double, like a lot of things that are dual in the Bible, has a double meaning. Watch yourselves, be sure you're not asleep. Watch yourselves and do what he said expressly. Watch the events that relate to the seals of prophecy. Watch world news. And are these things that relate to those seals of the prophecy, are they really spinning the news lately? Big time. And I used to think when Mr. Collins wanted to first start this program, and he hosted it for almost a year before he died, and he asked me to be sure and keep this going. At that time, we sometimes wondered when he first was going to start it, would we always have a half hour worth of news for every evening, that related to the Bible and prophecy? And as we began doing it, why, one story after another that relates to those first four seals especially, where we had to throw stories away and pick the most important ones. And that's the way it continues to be. But we're going to be talking about what those 1,335 days mean and whether that graduate from Bricket Wood, a very respected man, very learned, very studious, and the way he's come up with the facts that relate to this. Listen, you need to be here with us every night. We're going to be looking very much into this because the way he's showing the facts, that 1335 would have to begin in just a couple of weeks. So you ought to be, and then the 1290 would just be a month and a half later. Then you better have your bags packed and ready to go. But look, we're only going to look at it. I'm not saying he's correct on that, but I'm saying because he's laying out some facts that are that make a lot of sense, we ought to be taking a good hard look at it, and it certainly could prompt us. Mr. Armstrong did tell us to check out those 1335 and what they mean, and our Bricket Wood graduate friend he's doing what Mr. Armstrong told us to do about that, and he's come up with some things that ought to have some of us saying, if we hadn't pulled it all together yet, let's really get our schnick together now. All right, friends, that's all I'm going to say about that for now, and that's I want to end on this note with what we're going to be watching, and this fact that Karl von Habsburg, a grandson of Charles V, one of the Holy Roman Empires, is alive and well at age, I think he's 53, born in 1961. I don't think he's had his next birthday to make him 54 yet. So let's just call him 53, still quite in his prime, and quite ready and would very much be willing to be crowned, I believe, as the seventh and final head of the Holy Roman Empire. We'll see. And we'll be watching him. We'll be watching things, and we'll be talking about this 1335, 1290, and 1260 to see what our friend, he's got his name on that report. He's not looking for credit, so when I've talked to him before, he said, Steve, don't mention my name. So until I get a thumbs up from him about mentioning his name, I'm just going to hold it back for now. Some of you will figure out who he is because his report, I'm sure, is going to circulate, and we're going to go through what he's reporting and saying on this program because we ought to know one way or another. And as we watch as the days roll up to when the 1335 should be beginning, we should see some things in news that relate to that. Then when the 1290 would roll up, we should really be seeing things in news kind of stack up, put the dominoes up and ready for them to go whoosh. And you better have your bags packed at that time if our friend, I'll just use his initials, if our friend GN is correct, you better have your bags packed, ready to go. Well, the way we'll travel on the two wings of an eagle, we may not need any bags, but you better be ready to go and willing to go, and hopefully God will account you worthy to go, because you won't be able to go if God's not accounting you worthy. So it's not like you're going to go off to some wacko place, You won't be able to go if God doesn't account you worthy. We'll just put it right there. And this is our last broadcast until Sunday. You may want to tune in this weekend on Sabbath Service Channel, because we'll begin talking about these things that GN is talking about. I'll give you some stuff that you ought to be thinking about and praying about and being concerned about, friends. So, those of you who join me, you're going to be in for some really interesting news from henceforth. And not just because we turned a new number on a pagan Roman calendar. On God's holy calendar, 2014, 2015 has extremely little significance. The real significance are the dates and months and days that occur on God's holy sacred calendar, which at this time is the Hebrew calendar. So that's it for tonight, friends, for this Thursday night. God willing, and the creek don't rise, we'll be back with more nightcasts and current day's news related to the Bible and prophecy on Sunday evening. And again, as I mentioned, for those that know about it already or who want to try to look us up, we're on the Sabbath Service TV channel, Sabbath.tv, on the weekends, on the times announced on the homepage on our main website, cogtv.org. Thanks for joining me tonight, friends. I'll say until next time, your host, Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth, saying so long and good night, friends.
You have been watching Nightcast with Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth. Nightcast can be seen Sunday through Thursday nights here on cogtv.org. Tonight's program is also available anytime on demand in the cogtv.org video archive.